Okay, it's being live streamed. One second here. Making Phyllis the host.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
Okay, so I think we just need to end the practice session.
Okay. And it is great. Practice session. We're getting ready to start. The webinar has started. And at this point, we have 0 attendees.
Okay, well, we can get started anyway, because start with preliminaries. Welcome to the special meeting of the Clifton Town Council this Monday, August 29th, 2022. We're holding this by Zoom electronically in accordance with the provisions that we've set forth and approved. The special meeting's been duly noticed. I think it requires 3 days notice. I think we did 7 days, so people would have plenty of time to be aware of it. And as a special meeting and as a limited scope, there's only one item on the agenda, and that is review approval of the proposal for the cleanup of the town easement to the 8-acre park. We've sent out the easement, and as you know, by way of background, we didn't just come up with this. We've been working on this quite a while to go through the title, all the title survey work, and then get a professional surveyor to survey it and plat it to make sure we had it exactly right. Sent out pictures of that everybody's got. It's a 30-foot wide access easement. It's pretty wide, and it's actually wider than that, maybe 35, almost 40 feet at some points, and thinner as it tapers up towards Chapel Street being a public right-of-way. We at one point had it staked and flagged. Many of the flags are gone, but a couple of the key flags are still there. We got a proposal to clean up the easement. And what's going on there is when you go down there, you'll see the gate that the county has put in. That gate is actually right in the middle of the easement. But the easement also goes to the left of that when you come down to the end of Chapel Street. But what you see from the end of Chapel Street are some scrubby, dead trees, invasive plants and other things, and you actually cannot see the bridge at all. So what we're looking at is maintaining the vegetation, cleaning it up, and providing a sight line from the end of the street to the bridge so people can see where the 8-acre park is and where the bridge is to get to it. And they don't have to go wandering around on other people's property, which I think is a real benefit of this. And as Amanda pointed out to me, we've had 2 initiatives underway for quite some time. One is to expand usable green space in town, acquire green space, and not just acquire it, but then like we did with the Harris Park extension, make it actually usable by the community to give people more space, because Clifton can be quite congested, more space to get outside, get away from people, get around. And so green space and accessibility, and also the ability to access that green space. It's nice to have the 8-acre park, but if nobody knows where it is and nobody can get to it, then you're limiting the accessibility. So improvements in accessibility, we've been working on that with the Caboose parking lot. Improvements in usable green space, we've been doing that with Harris Park. So this is consistent with all those other items. And we got an estimate from Stokes. I originally had a much higher estimate, and I went down with him and walked through it. And he said, oh, well, this is much less than I thought it was, because when you go down there, there's a space to the right side, looking from the end of Chapel Street to the right side that's graveled, that's part of the easement. there's nothing to do there. It's already gravel. And there's a space to the left side, which is actually at the end of Chapel and on Chuck's property, that's sand. I don't know why it's sand, but it's sand there. Nothing to do there. It's actually right in between those two. There's a little bit of a berm there. And for reasons I don't quite understand, a whole bunch of little trees grew up in the berm. They're literally growing in the berm. So those little trees, like I said, many are dead, would be taken out. The invasive vines and other things would be taken out. And there is one very large branch off a tree that's on Chuck's property that's hanging over the easement, and it's like really, really obviously dead and dangerous. And Tom's going to cut that limb off as well. And where there's, when you get done taking this out, to the extent there's mud there, Tom's going to be covering all of that in wood chips to address any sort of concerns with erosion or anything else. We'll have a surfacing, but not a hard surfacing. It'll be wood chips. I was contacted by Chuck, who said, I want to know what's going on down there and what specifically will be done. What's the work? Where is it? And I spent an hour going through it all with Chuck. And after I went through it all, he was very happy with it, understands exactly what we're doing, and is very supportive of it. And we're actually going to clip a couple vines on a tree of his that's right next to the easement that he asked us about, because the vine is actually hurting a big tree that's there. So
our two speakers, Chuck and Amy, are on the attendees now.
Okay, so that's just the background on what we're planning on doing and why we're planning on doing it. And you have a proposal to do it. And it's the sort of proposal that I ultimately liken to what we've done with Harris Park Extension. It's a capital improvement, the kind of thing that ought to be covered by the funds that the government has provided to us, but it's something that nonetheless we need to approve, and we need to consider and approve. And we've had this out there, the easement information and the other stuff, for quite some time, to give people time to think about it, consider it. So that's the background. And what I would propose is we have two speakers, give them an opportunity to provide their input, and then the council can discuss based on everything that the council's heard. And if the council has questions, of course, for the speakers. So I think the first speaker is Mr. Resnick.
Yes, I'm going to promote Chuck to panelist so he can speak.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I did go over all of the specifications and the site plan with Bill for some time. And for the most part, I'm satisfied with it. We did have some questions about the berm. And my understanding for the 40 years that we've been here is that the purpose of the berm was to mitigate any flood water that would come out of the creek. And I have seen the flood water get up to the gate before, and that berm serves a purpose by protecting the road and not washing it out. Or that's the end of the road, and the continuance of that road is actually an easement across my property and the Webb Sanctuary for the piece of property that sits maybe a half a mile down the road. And they have access in two different directions, but this particular easement is for another access to that property. At any rate, the one thing that I wanted to mention, Bill, I now have, I don't know if you can see this, but I have my survey of my property, and then I have this version. I don't know if you can see that version or not.
You don't have your camera on.
What's that?
You don't have your camera on.
Really? Can you see me?
No.
Oh, you can. Well, Okay. I'm not going to go into that right now. So, Bill, what we were talking about towards the end of our meeting down there was the clearing of the easement probably has to be sort of a dog leg from the end of Chapel Street. It's not going to be straight on because the gate's there, and we also have the berm. And I don't know what you want to do with the berm, but I believe that the berm is necessary to mitigate any floodwaters. So your access is across the berm, in essence, from what I can see on the site plan. And maybe we can move the berm, but it should stay there. As far as the trees and the brush go from the berm, it can probably be removed, but it can't be denuded, otherwise the berm will wash away. And then the other question I have is on your contractor specification. It says to level the land. And that's where the berm comes into play. I don't think we can ask him to level the land there. We need to talk about how that's going to be addressed. But for the most part, you know, I think you're going to end up walking across my property. But from what I can see, the berm is lined up with the north side of Chapel Street, the 30-foot easement for Chapel Street. And my property goes right up to that berm and down onto the creek. And then it continues way up the hill all the way to Chestnut Street. So at any rate, I think those are the only two questions I have. Yeah. As far as the specifications for the contractor go, the only objection I'm going to have is leveling of all that dirt. And the berm, I don't know if we have a good survey of where it exactly sits, but it's approximately lined up with the north edge of the Chestnut Street, Chapel Street, I'm sorry, access. And that's all I have at the moment.
Okay. Very helpful. And so everybody knows the proposal was done a couple weeks ago before Chuck and I spoke. And I thought the berm, I had heard that the berm was created in another way and was an artifact rather than something that was wanted. And so after talking to Chuck, I said, you know, we can keep the berm. We'll just have them move the berm so it's doing what it does, but it's not right in the middle of where people would walk. And I'll be dealing with the contractor on that.
So how do you think we will address this berm? You got any ideas? Are we going to move it back like you suggested, or we're going to cut through it?
No, I think we would move it back. That's my plan.
Okay.
So
The property lines get a little wonky down there.
they do. There's a lot going on that.
Yeah.
Going on that picture. Yes.
We got three access points that all sort of converge there.
Yep.
Easements.
Yes.
That they're not. He's not going to do any digging at all.
None at all.
No
Nothing.
backhoe work or anything like that.
Zero. Yeah, zero.
Okay,
This is a tree cutting operation, but because that berm's there, originally we were gonna flatten the berm because we didn't think it was a particular thing, but after you and I talked, we'll keep the berm, but we'll move the berm. He'll just push it.
okay. Yeah, because my sewer easement runs right across your easement.
Yeah, no digging of any sort. He won't even have equipment to do digging if he wanted to, but no digging of any sort.
Okay,
All right. Okay, and you good, Chuck?
what's that?
Are you finished for now?
Yes, yes, I'll
Okay.
listen.
Okay.
Thank
very
you,
good.
Chuck.
And our other speaker is Amy Leister, who I understand is on as well.
Yes, I just promoted Amy to panelist so she can speak.
Okay. All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so I'm honestly glad to hear some, improvements are being made to the entrance to the 8-acre park. I think it's a nice park, and that sounds good. And I echo Chuck's concerns that we obviously don't want to do anything that causes any additional flooding of the floodplain area. I use that area, as you all probably know, for horses to graze out there. And so definitely don't want to invite any additional water that we don't need into the area. So I'm glad to hear that there won't be any grading, and it's just cleaning up some trees. 'Cause I feel like, unfortunately, since I've moved here, Fairfax County, of course, owns the easement for the pump and haul. And finally, they did at least put some gravel down and fix a few things, because I feel like they do a good job in general. They cause damage and don't always fix it. They have gotten trucks stuck down there and have made some pretty nasty marks that they actually had to have, I think, one of the trucks get pulled out that got stuck down there, and they just left. And it's actually, I think, on my property, just left the damage that the trucks did to the when they pulled off of the gravel area and were spinning tires trying to get out of there. They just left that damage. A tree fell down, and that is my property, but it was blocking the trucks that morning. They cut up the tree, but then they just threw the remnants of the tree, piled it up in the middle of some other, I guess, an area that I thought wouldn't harm anything, but they're clearly not looking to improve anything. They just want to make sure the access to the trucks is taken care of, which I get, but it's I'm not real impressed, I guess, with what they have done or not done as far as the area of the easement. It's on my property, so again, I do appreciate any improvements because I think the 8-acre park is a very nice park. I know a lot of people like to walk their dogs down there. People go to Peterson's, walk around the park down there. The only other thing I do want to say is that, I've been very frustrated, as I know that the council knows, about my own trying to improve my property, a horse property, trying to just get a simple, in my opinion, simple riding ring. It's not a building. It's just a sand arena built. And I've talked to the mayor and also the planning commissioner and reiterated the fact that because it's taken me a year and a half, and I still have not a whole lot of progress, a little bit, but still don't have my permits for a riding ring. I'm not inclined, though, to let the town use my property for what I've seen just posted on social media about, and I did talk to Amanda about it, but about the upcoming Halloween haunted trail and also Clifton days. I've spent a lot of money for the town engineer and my own engineers because I had to get a land development plan. And I, in turn, have not been able to donate as much to charity as I would like, because a lot of my money's been tied up in trying to get this riding ring. It's been twice or three times as expensive as I thought it would be. So I just do want to put out there, I feel like maybe some people are assuming that more than just the town's easement will be used for the upcoming planning of the Clifton Days. Nobody's talked to me about it this year, and for the haunted trail. So I will ask that there's going to be a fee associated with using my property outside of the easement. I appreciate the fact that I did find out again through the clerk that the town did advocate on my behalf for my plan with Fairfax County a couple of weeks ago. I do appreciate that. But like I said, I'm going to ask that any use beyond the easement area of my property, there's going to be a fee associated with that. And I am going to give it to charity because I think that's the right thing to do, but there will be a fee associated with that from now on. So I just want to put that out so it's not a surprise.
Okay, thank you. Couple thoughts. First of all, on fee, talk to Amanda about that. We don't need to talk about it here, but just whatever your thoughts are on that. I think the haunted trail event we're talking about, because we don't presume any right, was presuming not to use any property without any authorization. But this idea of a fee, I hadn't thought of that. That's, might make sense. So Amanda's working on that with others, and Amanda can be in touch with you on that. Clifton Day, Michelle Stein is the person to talk to about that. Clifton Day is run by the Clifton Betterment Association, not the town. So I have no knowledge of whether they have any plan to even ask to use any of that property. I don't know. They might, and they might not, but that would be the person to contact, Michelle Stein. And for the council's benefit, so everybody knows, we've approved Amy's application from our end, and we did it a long time ago. Amanda, you may know, 5 months ago or something. And the county's been sitting on it, and none of us could figure out why. We finally had a call to go, what are you doing? Could you explain? And it turned out that the county believed that Amy's application had the line wrong for what's called the RPA, the Resource Protection Area or something like that, okay, near the creek. And under the town's ordinance, that's 100 feet from the stream bed. Pretty straightforward, okay? In the county's ordinance, it's 100 feet from the stream bed plus as far as any floodplain goes. So the county believed we had approved the wrong RPA and Amy had drawn the wrong RPA because it had to go out to where the floodplain went. And we had a discussion with them and we said, our rules govern and our rules are different. And they looked at ours and they said, oh, they are different. Oh, we were wrong about this. So once they realized that, I don't know when we spoke to them a couple weeks ago, they're now moving ahead on what they should have been moving ahead 5 months ago on. So we've cleared this up, but Amy's been held hostage by the county for reasons that we had no idea what they were doing. They actually said to us, would you agree to just use ours? And we're like, no, for the many reasons. One of them being we have a code. We have to use our code. We couldn't bind Amy to use something like the county has that far exceeds our code. So Amy gets the benefit of our code, not whatever the county's doing. So we talked to them, that's moving ahead, but I know what a riding ring is. One of our kids rides all the time at NBTRP, big fans, and other places. And I agree it's taken too long to get it done. So agreed with you there. And Amanda can reach out to you about the other things. And again, Michelle Stein, Clifton Day. Don't know anything about that, but worth finding out.
Okay, sounds good.
Chuck has his hand up.
All right.
I will promote him so he can speak.
Okay.
Hi, Chuck, you can speak now. Did you have more to share?
How about unmute? Does that help?
That
Yes.
helps a lot.
Okay. I'm gonna not fiddle with this anymore. I just wanted to add something to what Amy had said about the trucks using the easement down there. The part where they turn around, they come down and then they have to back into their pumping hole. And they turn around, at least the front part of the truck is going to end up or is on your easement. And that's not paved, it's not gravelled or anything. And when the weather is wet, that becomes a pothole. So you might have to talk to the county about how to use your easement down there. And that's the only thing I wanted to add to what Amy had to say.
Okay, that's good advice. And I think one of the things we want to do is coordinate with the county on how these pieces fit together. And we're doing it, a step at a time. So we do it incrementally, progressively, and don't try to do everything at once. But I agree with that we need to look at what the county's doing, how they're doing it. Not happy to hear the county's doing some things that are less than ideal down there. And to look into that and pay closer attention to it. So I appreciate that input.
When do you plan to do this work, Bill?
This week.
This coming week?
This coming week. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is with the haunted trail. As you know, we haven't had a haunted trail for several years. And there have been a lot of people who've really been unhappy that we haven't had the haunted trail event because it's such an important community building event. So many people like to volunteer and like to participate in that event. And we've had some people step forward. Some people in the past said, they're ready to move on, which is not unusual, especially with the pandemic. But we've had people step up and say, I'd like to do it. And that's a mix of newer people and people who've been involved with the trail before. That effort coming up. And one of the first ideas was that the haunted trail had gotten big, like everything. The car show, heaven forbid, the motorcycle thing, whatever that is. These things, they start small and they're quaint and they get big and they're popular and people love Clifton. They get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the idea was back to our roots. And anyone who remembers the first time we did the trail or the first couple times we did the trail, it was a very simple event. It was a very community oriented event to try to have something simple. But that group is pulling something together that's been idle for, I think, 3 years. So in order to show that group that the council is fully behind it, we want to show them that with regard to getting to the 8-acre park, that it's clear. The way to get there, you don't have to go here, you don't have to go there, you go there. There you go. And they'll be able to look at it in advance of their planning meeting. If anybody hasn't heard, it's September 8th. September 8th. Well, there's a lot going on September.
It's a party, not a meeting.
That's
Oh.
right.
It's a party. It's a get-together party at which people will surely share ideas about what will be done. And in advance of that, we wanted to show them that we're doing our part and we're fully behind their community volunteer effort. So the idea is to get the work done quickly, and it's a day, maybe a day and a half, which is what we're paying Tom for, of work to do this. I don't even know that it'll take a day to do. So it'll be this week.
When do you
Provided we
think,
have a motion.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we still have to discuss it and prove it. Go ahead, Chuck.
Bill, when do you think you're going to get started this week?
My guess is, what is today? Monday? My guess is Wednesday.
Okay.
So he's standing by, ready for our word. and we'll say, it's go time. And he had said, oh, can I wait a couple weeks? And the answer is no, because we really need to show the haunted trail people that we stand by our word. So I'm expecting Wednesday, Chuck, but I
Okay,
haven't wrote that down.
if he doesn't, at least between now and Wednesday, could we have him come down there? And I would like to talk about these things with him directly so that there isn't any misunderstanding on what I expect and what you expect and what he thinks he's going to deliver.
Sure. Yep, we'll be reaching out to him tonight. We can include that.
Yeah, because I'm leaving on Thursday and I won't be back for several
Oh.
days, which
Okay,
is unfortunate. I would like to be here when work goes on.
well, that's all the more reason to get it done while you're here.
Yeah,
Okay, got it. All
or at
right.
least started.
Yeah. And you've talked to him and he knows exactly, and you've looked him in the eye and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
All good. Okay. All right, very good.
Every time I have left the contractor on his own, it has never worked out.
The good thing about this is we've worked with this contractor 10 times, maybe. And so Phyllis knows, when I say we worked with him, Phyllis works with him. We've worked with him a lot, and he knows what we want, and he's very, very responsive. So we've had good experience, as opposed to we brought in somebody nobody knows and it's pretty vague. Like here, it's very, very specific. So I feel good about it. But nonetheless, we'll have him down there and you talk to him as
Okay.
well.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Council, anybody have any questions? We certainly talked about a lot of stuff. So we probably figured out what's going on. And all we really need to do is approve the work. As I said, we got the estimate. It was much higher. We spoke to him again and went through it very specifically. And he said, oh, this is much less scope than I thought, which is good because that's what we want too. He gave us this estimate, which is a more town-friendly estimate. So we've got this estimate to do the work. Chuck rightly points out that it said something about dirt is level as opposed to dirt moved. Okay. So that'll be pushing it, and instead of flattening, it's probably easier for him. So any questions or anything else?
Yeah, Bill, this is Pat. Couple points. So he's going to bring a bobcat down there and reshape that berm somewhere else.
What I assume he's going to do, first of all, there are trees growing in the berm, okay, and invasive plants. If you go down there, it's actually weird. They're all coming out of the berm. They're not around the berm. They're in the berm. So those will be pulled out, and he'll get his stump grinder and he'll grind them down. When that's done, you're going to have a berm that looks like a berm with a bunch of holes in it. He's going to reshape that berm to do the intended purpose that Chuck's talked about.
Okay, so he's going to bring a bobcat down there and reshape the berm somewhere else.
Yes, I assume he's bringing a bobcat and not doing it by shovel. Yes, and he's got one, so that's what I expect.
All right, and are we sure, because that's RPA, are we sure we don't need to talk to the county about this?
Yes, that's good. I didn't mention this because it's somewhat of a side issue, but we've had multiple meetings, Zoom calls, and discussions with the Planning Commission chair, and multiple discussions with our town engineer, Gordon and Associates, on this very question. In the RPA, what can you do? And we've gone through this in great detail. And your instinct probably tells you this is okay, but it's not just kind of okay, it's expressly okay. That there are specific exemptions to do, sorry, now let me get the key words here. Specific exemptions where you're doing pathways, okay? pathways and to provide sites. Okay, so, and there are things, whatever permits you need, you get. Okay, and that's if you're going above 2,500 square feet. This is probably 100 square feet, well below. Our engineer confirmed nothing required on that front.
So we have a document from our engineer saying no permits required.
I think we actually do, depending on whether you consider an email a document. Yeah.
Yeah. Just at least we've done our due diligence, asked the right questions, and we're advised a certain way.
Yeah, we've done like extra diligence, like over the top diligence. Yes, and we have writings from the town engineer on it. We have all the provisions, they've all been gone through. And the idea of maintaining sight lines, maintaining access paths, general woodlot management, that all of this can be done. Okay.
Okay. That was my comments.
Okay. Daryl, did you have something or you're just waving? Okay, good. Okay. Any other questions or anything else on this?
I'm just concerned that Daryl's halo is either leaving or coming. I'm not sure which, and I'm a little concerned about that.
Hope it's coming. Yeah, and to Pat's excellent point, we've done a lot of homework on this to make sure we've looked at everything and be able to answer any questions that might come up and talk to everybody, because we know it's something people care about. And I was very happy with Amanda to point out the importance of being able to use green space and the accessibility issue that people can get to it. Because right now there's a big gate and a bunch of trees. If you go down there, like if you go down to the end of Chapel Street, you can't even see there is a bridge. You figure one might be there if somebody told you, but you wouldn't know. So that's a sightline issue. With the vegetation management we're talking about here, you will be able to go down there, see where the bridge is, and walk to the bridge using the easement.
Chuck has his hand raised again. I'm going to allow him to speak.
Okay.
Chuck, unmute yourself, please.
Tells me unmuted, doesn't it?
Yeah, you did it again.
I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, but you said something about the Chesapeake Bay ordinance and the county approvals. Nobody knew when your discussions were going on that we had visions of moving that berm. And I wonder whether that's going to muddy the water and whether we still need to ask somebody about that. And if we don't move the berm, like I said earlier, coming up with a dog leg on this path that would somewhat go around the berm, but still leave it there and not get involved in any more discussions about how much square feet we're moving.
Yeah, it doesn't change the conclusion because it's quite express on land disturbance exceeding 2,500 square feet. That's 50 by 50, which the whole easement isn't 50 by 50. So not worried about that. And actually what was being proposed, which was to level it, I think was actually more.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
More extreme than just moving it. So this would be less. So I'm not concerned about that.
Okay.
But thanks for asking. Okay, any other questions, council members? Everybody okay? Well, with all of that discussion, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal by Stokes Tree Solutions for $4,000 to do the 8-acre trail entrance work, with the one point that we will be moving the berm instead of leveling the berm.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll do a roll call vote. Holloway, aye.
F. Ross, aye.
Oh, aye.
Line aye.
Green eye.
All right, thank you, everyone. We'll get this done. We'll be talking to Chuck and we'll give you the rest of your evening back.
Motion to adjourn?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
adios.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. All right, good evening.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you later.
Do I
Oh.
have to